welcome everybody to episode 46 of Native Paranormal Crossroads. My name is Laura Massey from Two Feathers Medicine. I'm really honoured to be back in this new year, honoured to be hosting this show once again with these wonderful, wonderful guys. And we have the Paranormal Rangers, Michelle Miners, Jonathan Dover, and Stan Milford. It's really good to be back with you guys.
Well, we're really glad that you came back to us.
Good to have you back.
Yeah, we're getting ready to send a search party to look for you.
Yes, it has been a while, but I'm back. I'm really excited that this is the 46th episode. I think we started from the Galactic Historian team. We started with you, I'm thinking, way back last April. So we've covered a lot of topics and a lot of ground since then, and it's all been fabulous stuff. You've increased your audience, you know, your social media footprint and so on. So it's all looking really good. So we have a title today, Just an Everyday Haunting, which I need to find out more about. So I think you said, Jonathan, you were going to give us a backdrop to what this is about.
Right. Last week or last episode, we were talking about various subjects like we always do, just flapping our lips, and toward in the middle, somewhere during the podcast, we kept hearing this, and we kept hearing this heavy breathing coming through. So individually, each one of us shut our microphone off, but the breathing continued. And it's just the three of us on there. There's nobody else coming in, and of course I'm thinking, okay, this must be the CIA or the FBI or the NSA, one of those three-letter agencies listening in on us. And, we might spill some kind of national secrets. And then when we shut off our microphones, we couldn't determine, it was none of us. And Michelle was running the whole thing, so there's no way that anybody else could have been on. Toward the end, when we signed off, and Stan makes the statement, shout out to Darth Vader, who joined our podcast. we hear we just signed off, and we hear this bang, coming from where Michelle's sitting, and she jumps, physically, she's startled, and we're going, what was that? And of course, I'm looking for a terrestrial explanation, so I'm saying, did you have anything behind you along the wall that might have been stacked up, that maybe something fell? And she says, no, there's nothing stacked up there. And on examination, just a little short investigation, she found that a tin, a square, tin with a lid on it, had flown across the room from somewhere in front of her or obliquely and smacked into the wall and ended up on the floor. And the tin contained balm, so it had some weight to it. There was a dent in the wall, and after that, Michelle was able to take the tin and match the corner of the tin up with the wall dent to show, cause and effect, or or the mechanism of damage. So we all says, okay, we had a ghost, and maybe we need to take some bitter medicine and smoke, smudge ourselves, and for protection. But it didn't seem like it was violent in a way that it could hurt us. I think it just wanted to let us know that it was there.
The energy was also,
So, what you don't think it was aimed at you, Michelle? It
no,
wasn't
it
aimed
wasn't
at
a
you.
projectile kind of situation. It
Yeah.
actually, the energy was, I kept turning around during the show to see what's behind me, and that's noted on the last episode. I kept looking around and I keep it was something like that. As the gentlemen were speaking at the time, but I was turning around like I keep hearing something, and of course you just think maybe it's the creaking of a home or your room or whatever, and I just kept feeling something behind me, and the energy was pretty thick after we got off. Three of us got off, and that occurrence happened, and so it was like the conversation then led to how do we protect ourselves, and again, we use our spiritual means of using the better medicine, and then we smudged, and then we talked to each other individually. We got off the network, and you know, did our thing, and then called each other, and we. Stan really helped me walk it through. So did Jonathan, and we cleansed our homes, and each of us did because we really feel sometimes the subject matter that we talk about can bring these things in, and but we were more worried about the protection, and I didn't feel anything negative. It was just that we had a paranormal moment, and we had wished we had got caught it on camera on this
Not
show.
only did us three experience it, but even our
Oh, the
audience
audience, right?
commented, several of them, that they were hearing the breathing too, and some people were not comfortable with that. Which it did have a kind of ominous sound to it, like a deliberate, uh, uh, the tone of the manner of the breathing was kind of ominous, and but a number of audience members commented that they could hear it.
What I find most interesting, as you said, all three of your mics were
Yes.
off
Yeah.
at one time, and yet the
Yeah.
breathing could still be
Yep.
Not
heard.
only that,
So my logical, scientific brain is saying, how does that
not only
compute
that,
if all microphones
I
are off?
was observing both Michelle and John when the breathing was going on, and they would be talking while the breathing was going on. So it was neither one of them, uh, their actual
Mm.
breath, and it wasn't mine. At times, I would actually be holding my breath and listening to the audio of the breathing going on too. So it was separate from us three, and which I commented if there would be any way for like you or Dale or somebody else that joins us on some of the shows, if
Hmm.
it could be, a mic from somebody else. And Michelle commented that it was only us three mics that were active. So I don't know.
Yeah,
We had
only you on
We had a
restream.
couple of
Yeah.
comments from Julie Jenkins, one of our regulars who comes on our show, and she put, I just put that on the screen that I know I had chills for a while and I was just watching. She said it was amazing and my heart was pumping. So we had those ongoing chats where people were also in the audience in the chat room, uh, hearing it as well. And so those are some of the past comments. I mean, they're now here on our show today, and they're exploring along with us things that we were trying to investigate ourselves too. So, welcome, Julie. Thank you for that comment.
Thank you.
So is it on the playback
Yes, it's on the YouTube channel. Yeah,
of the show?
yeah,
It's
it's
all
still
still
there.
there. Okay. Yeah. And then the incident with the dent in the wall behind you didn't happen till just straight after you'd
Yes,
come off
yes,
being
yeah,
live. Yeah.
because we were kind of commenting. We commented on the show, and then I downloaded into my archives. And then that's when we were speaking, and all the interaction was still there, where it followed
Mm.
after the show, and I happened to be the recipient
Usually,
This time,
Somebody.
this time.
after we do a show,
Yes.
we'll do kind of a debriefing or hot
Yes,
wash or hogwash afterward, and talk about how the show went and things of that nature. So after we finish each show, we'll still be on here for a little while discussing things before we completely get off the air.
Yeah, a hot
So something really wanted your
yeah, a
attention.
hot wash. Me and Stan got used to doing this in our work
Hmm.
because in SWAT work and other law enforcement work, you do an after action briefing. And the purpose of it is to gauge how well you did and to make improvements. And so you're constantly trying to improve whatever the experience was, and by tactics, by just however, and you look at inconsistencies and
Safety.
things that happen, yeah, and you try to correct them so that the next time your audience will have an even better experience.
Yeah. For me,
So where would you
one
go on,
other thing
Stan?
was that during the holidays, on New Year's Eve, I did receive an apport of a coin early one morning, and this was just random out of the blue, and um, also going back to October, there was a number of incidents where I had coins apport, and one incident where there was quite a few coins, and this happened in front of a guest that was not even familiar with this phenomenon, and it still happened right in front of them. So, in talking with Michelle and talking with John, I came up with the idea for that topic that, sometimes these things are just an everyday occurrence, and hence the title.
And I think you've all always said to not have any
Oh
fear
yeah,
behind this, to not be fearful about anything
right,
like this. Paranormal doesn't mean
right.
fear.
No,
No, it
I
was
know
it
for
was
new
shocking, still surprising because you're having the experience of an unforeseen nature. And
for for people that have not had these kind of experiences, it can be frightening. And I think
right,
that's why we
Hmm.
always try to reiterate, don't allow these things to have any type of power or authority over you. If anything, refer back to your spirituality, and or if you believe in a higher power, put it in the hands of the creator. And so yeah.
so Laura, have you
Yes,
experienced
I
anything there in the UK with your practice and or with your clients or anybody? Have you ever had any that type of experiences?
I do get experiences like that, especially when I moved in here to my flat a couple of years ago, and it's quite a suburb of a town, quite a busy street, and it's also a pre-war house. So I was constantly woken at night and given images and so on. For me, things like that happen in my dreams. So we're not necessarily saying that is paranormal, but certain things have happened, like a young lad came to me and he definitely needed crossing over, and I was able to do some ceremony and cross him over from the flat, and so I could get some peaceful night's sleep. And I didn't know, I researched online to find out, because it's something that must have happened about 30 years ago, and quite by accident I was talking to the neighbour next door, and she just happened to bring up that a young lad opposite had been stabbed to death about 30 years ago. And then I'm getting goosebumps now. And then I realised that's who I had crossed over. But it's interesting how the information comes to you. You don't normally get that. Sometimes you never know, do you? It's not something I particularly look for to cross
Yeah.
people over. But obviously, if you do this
Yeah.
sort of work, they
Right.
seek you out because they know it's something you can do. And I wasn't fearful about it. I realised from the dream that he actually needed some help, and that's what I gave him. So I hope, I assume I did a good thing. It felt right to do it. It was all from heart space, and I just love the synchronicities in this, where maybe a year later, I didn't find out to a year later or so, his story, and I'm glad that I was able to bring some closure to that. So yeah, that is slightly
Yeah.
paranormal. I suppose I've had things that all my life. Many of us have experienced some unusual
I
things, bangings or noises,
I
and
think
so
that,
on.
like, for the four of
Can't say.
us, that I think we have very identifiable and unique auras about our person, about who we are. And me and John, over the years, in presenting in different places where they have maybe a set aside a room that people sell their books or crystals and these kind of things, there will be those individuals that are able to read auras and things like that. And they would always, when they would see John and I, they would tell us, "Oh my God, your auras, both of you are blinding," And
I love
I
it.
I think that at times, in a way, can make us a target for negative energy because it'll seek us out because
Mm.
of our aura and who we are. They tend to gravitate toward that individual and their aura for whatever reason. So yeah, I think we're attracted,
Well, not to
to.
speculate here, it was really interesting correlation. I attended a funeral of a very close friend of mine that had passed on. She had gotten the influenza and taken some cold medicine and then passed on. And is the circumstances is, was this someone trying to get a hold of me? And, I moved on kind of thing. That's just speculation. You kind of often in your mind wonder. And then I ended up at her funeral and, the Saturday after our show, from Thursday to Saturday, so I was at her funeral on Saturday. I often wonder if she was trying to let me know I'm here, and that has happened to me with relatives. And but she was a very, very close and very young. I taught her in a Sunday school group, young women's group that I used to be a leader of, and I was her leader. And at the funeral, her mother just kept saying she loved you so much, and that meant a lot. So I kind of correlated maybe that was
Yeah,
somebody trying to get in touch.
a
Yeah,
sign.
a sign. Yeah, absolutely.
So what's the difference between what happened to you, Michelle, after the show, and let's say a poltergeist? Is a poltergeist much more destructive? Is that a term you use?
Um, you know, poltergeist. It's an interesting word. You watch these media
Mm.
shows like, that have come out in Hollywood where there's violence involved. This was not violence. So this was just I'm here. Just letting you know I'm here. And the object didn't
Yes.
hit me. It was directed towards the wall. So I
Mm.
mean, the gentleman heard it too. I mean, it was very loud. They go, "What's that?" And I go, "Yeah, what's that?" And then after doing the event, Jonathan gave a good, surmise about it. But we have to come from an investigative knowledge of poltergeists. They continue to, I guess, in my view of it, is to annoy you and to hurt you and to get
Harass,
energy.
harass you.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
This was not that.
Well, man tends to like to put these little labels on every little thing,
Yeah,
Yeah.
a
yeah.
genre for this and a genre for that, and but ultimately, I think it's connected to spirit activity. Uh, Whether this is an actual human spirit that has lived at one point, or things that people refer to connected to religious realms of like angels or entities, maybe something extraterrestrial. We don't really know, um, but yeah, man likes to put his little labels on every little thing, and who's to know, unless you really went into the investigation and were able to define more clearly what the activity was. So
Yeah,
Poltergeist
the other
associated with
thing is
violence,
that
you know.
we are a total sum of our experiences
Yeah.
and our teach and what we've learned in our lifetime. And if you look back at what Hollywood has done, they also with UFOs, they've put that fear out there because fear sells. You know, fear is even used in our government to push,
Mm.
um, policies through
Mm.
and bills to spend
control,
money. It's a form of control. And so, you're saying, oh, the crime rate is up, people are being murdered, we need to allocate more money for all this stuff, and they spend billions, and then it's not really as bad as they say it is, but they're just using a few exempt examples. And it's the same way with Hollywood and ghosts. They've made it sound like, ooh, it's scary, uh, and you're in the middle of a Scooby Doo episode, you know, and then you see TV shows where the hosts are running around, and they're panicking and everything else, and that's supposed to be entertaining. We've actually had people, ask us in the industry, can you look fearful? And we said, yeah, that's not going to happen. Don't bother.
Hmm.
Uh, and one of the things that we found out by doing these investigations, these haunting investigations, is that when you start into them, if you start to show fear, it'll manifest even more. And so, we just clinically observe, we document, we try to get evidence, and that pretty much concludes the investigation. I had one where a family had there was an old hogan nearby with a skeleton coming out of the ground. So there was a Navajo, maybe from the 1920s, that was buried there in the middle of the hogan in the floor. And unbeknownst to the parents, the kids, the young, well, they're teenagers, and they were told to go get some wood. They went to this old hogan and took the wood from the hogan, and they were burning it in their fireplace.
firewood.
Yeah, they were using it for firewood. And the thing with that is you don't go anywhere near a grave, and you don't go anywhere near something that somebody owned that died. And they were having all kinds of poltergeist activity in the house that was really scaring them. And I ended up showing them, they stayed at a distance, but I showed them that there was a skeleton there. We did what we call capping, which is taking rocks and just filling over the surface, and that way there won't be any further erosion, and the bones will be protected. And it's a sign of respect that we're sorry that your grave was disturbed. And um, and then we told the family, you cannot use this wood, you have to leave it alone. The younger kids, the teenagers, they don't understand that. They don't understand that culture or that tradition. And and then we told them that they had to have a medicine man come in and do a ceremony for them. Of course, they wanted us to pay for it, but we told them that that's your responsibility. So, but that was kind of an extreme case where a lot of stuff was going on.
It was really interesting,
I
Laura.
think,
Last week, one of the Native American chat room members was Native American, and he said, "You guys opened up a vortex," and he pretty much said that he understands where we were going when with subject matter was about shapeshifters, and sometimes you can draw in that type of energy, hence the Darth Vader voice and everything. But is because we're so deeply spiritual and not from a religious standpoint of an institution, but our roots are embedded in the spirituality of being Native American and us respecting our ancestral lines and our ancestral ways. And I think sometimes there are times that we need to be reminded that there is another side and there's beings out there that may haven't, like for you in your practice, you assisted in them going home or going to a place they're filled wherever they need to go. And so that was, we were talking about a movie that Stan had seen that's out there in the theaters, and it's really popular right now. But he was talking, he had relations to his experience to that movie, and so that opens up a conversation that's wide open. And so maybe the other, whatever spirit that was wanting to connect to us, understood that we were open to that. And because the power of the word is very powerful on the terrestrial side. And what happens, what Stan spoke about, with entities, with paranormal, poltergeisting, whatever it is, positive or negative energies. These boys are trained. These men have been trained in their field, and that's why we always say, "Don't fear." Yeah, it raises the hair on the back. Having some projectile going, whoosh, hitting the wall is not a normal day occurrence. So it's surprising. I'll have to admit, the hair is raised up on the back of my neck, but we have to be logical in that we don't scream and shout. Oh my gosh, what was that? That freaked me out. That was the content of what we're trying to get across. It's just investigate. And Jonathan is really good at keeping it on this level from a terrestrial point. But it's there. It's real.
From a
well, I think absolutely what you three bring is a great deal of common sense and the neutrality not to jump to any conclusions and not to be like a TikTok reel. If you've seen any of those, nothing's glamorized. It's put out there as in the best possible way with your scientific side. But the beauty is you have that spiritual
Mhm.
background too, which then opens up, well, it's whole new
Yeah,
realms, isn't it? But
absolutely.
it opens up so much more, which allows things to be maybe explained in, depending on your beliefs and so on. But it actually gives the audience, these incredible views that you have from all of your
Some
experiences
of these
now.
energies and entities can actually try to get you to react and try to instill fear and these kind of things. And that goes back to where in some of the investigations John and I did, we're not going to give it that. We're going to stay in control and like you said, use some common sense. And that goes back to John and I SWAT training too. There was times that, I mean, we could have been having being shot at, having gunfire, you know, uh, in our presence. But you rely on your training, you put your safety in the hands of your creator, and you focus on the mission at hand, and that for the most part will get you through what it is that your objective is.
Yeah, the SWAT training, and I've got to relate this story. Um, they teach you if you're ambushed to assault into the ambush. Now, just saying it, it sounds, oh yeah, just turn and go toward the gunfire, that where they're shooting at you. Well, to train us, what they did is they invited a local fire department paintball team to come over, and we were given blanks for our weapons,
Mm-hmm.
and so we didn't have anything. And for an AR-15, the blank has a barrel plug, so nothing can come out the barrel. And so we're moving down, and all of a sudden we're getting pelted with paintballs. Now, for those of you who have ever played paintball, um, most of the time from a distance, it's not going to hurt you really bad. But when you get close, and I'm talking 10 feet, you know, a distance or 15 feet, that paintball has a lot of velocity. I had bruises on my body that didn't heal for 6 months from those. And yet, when those paintballs are flying at you and they're hurting, I mean, they sting. And you're supposed to turn and go right into this. And boy, I tell you what, that was hard to do. I remember officers in front of me completely freezing and or backing up, and I'm grabbing them from the belt from the behind and pushing them, you know, and using them for a little bit of cover too. But it's something that has to be taught and experienced, and then you start to say, okay, I understand that now, and I can do this. And you see other officers, if shooting starts, they'll back up, they'll run away. That and when you talk about fight or flight, there's two more in the deal: posture and um, and just give up. So you can posture like a rooster puffs out his chest, and you can just give up and curl up in a little ball and say, "Don't hurt me," or you can fight, or you can run. So there's actually four elements to that. So anyway, in this paranormal realm that we've experienced over a lot of years, Stan can tell you about an incident that he had where there was a ghost in his office building that would bounce a little rubber ball. And a rubber ball has a very distinct sound on wood. And, it almost has this slapping sound.
Mm-hmm.
And they would actually jump out of the office to look down the hallway, and they'd never see anything. But there's a child playing in there. That whole area, the housekeeping, the janitors that would come in after hours refused to work in the offices in the Window Rock area during after hours and when it got dark because of the ghosts that they've experienced. And we've seen security guards quit their jobs. Uh, they saw a feather dancing in the museum that looked like there was a whirlwind around it, and it was just upright and dancing around. And that security guard just says, "You know what? I'm gone," and quit. And so, things like that happen. And, we don't give into it because it can manifest more. And from a native standpoint, also from Navajo, medicine men have told me that if there's a death, um, yeah, go to the funeral, but don't shed tears if you can help it. But
Mm.
they tell me that you should not go to the gravesite. You can go to the reception afterwards and visit with family and friends that you haven't seen. But if you go to the gravesite and you shed tears,
Mm-hmm.
that spirit can attach to you. and go home with you. And so they always say that, try not to shed tears when you're at the gravesite. And and then in Navajo graves, there's always a bucket that's there that with hot coals in it, and they'll put cedar in there so you can smoke yourself and purify yourself before you leave. Um, so that's a part of our culture, and that's
One
what
of
we're
the
told.
one of the taboos with that too, you're not supposed to cut your fingernails 4 days after the person has died. You're not supposed to cut your hair uh, after that time, or shave. Even shaving, you're not supposed to do that. And this goes back to some of those cultural teachings.
Is that something out of
Well,
respect?
it could be, but I think that it leans. Navos tend to be very utilitarian. So there's a great fear of snakes by the Navajo. If you think back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, at those times, there wasn't widespread health care. We didn't have a local hospital or clinic. So if a person were to get bit by a rattlesnake, it could be life threatening very easily. So I think on that, with that in mind, I think that, at nighttime, Navajos traditionally would be inside the hogan at the time that it got dark. After you did your daily work, you came in, you were inside the hogan. You weren't outside traveling and moving and hanging out and things of that nature. And it was always said that it was the witches and shapeshifters and those kind of things that would be doing their business at nighttime after dark. So you stayed inside the home. So it could be out of partially out of respect, but you know John and I have learned that these practices associated to witchcraft, they can and would utilize a person's hair, the DNA or whatever in the hair, or their nails to affect spells and things of that nature to harm other people. So
Did you ever have any situations that there was a slight conflict between what you were doing as rangers and how you are as Navajo? For example, some of these places that you said were haunted that you visited, but you went in like as a SWAT team or something like that, or you were working there. Um, did you feel sometimes there were places, there were negative energies that you should be clearing, but you couldn't because of your actual daytime your jobs, or is that, do you feel that these places you just leave it and you walk away and it's not up to you to actually have to do any of the
John
clearing
is an
there?
archaeological specialist, and you look behind me and my image here of this ruin that's from Canyon de Chelly, he can elaborate about places like that and the energies there and this kind of thing. John?
Yeah, the typical ranger would not approach or go into any of these places. They would not
Yeah.
attempt to even investigate a haunting case or a Bigfoot case or anything like that, much less a shapeshifter case, because they're very fearful. Both Stan and I were different, even though we're registered members of the Navajo Nation. We both grew up in different locations away from the reservation and visited it, often. And so we didn't have the same um, traditional values that a lot of our other rangers had. So that's why we were kind of singled out and ordered to do these investigations. We didn't sit there and volunteer about it. This was in 2000, and we just looked at each other and we thought, oh man, we're going to be the X Files. We didn't say it out loud, but we were prepared to go and do these things. And when we did have to consult with medicine men and healers and other people on how to comport ourselves in these places and what to watch out for.
It's interesting when you're raised as a urban Indian and not raised on the reservation, there is a different take on these entities. When I was doing some research up in the Uinta Basin, working on different ranches and areas of the Uinta Basin, the the feedback that I would get from not understanding the traditions of Navajos or Utes or other nations is this is archaic mindsets. And it, in a way, just saddened me. And I don't want to say the word offended, but I'm going to say it. It offended my spirit to say, but boy, these are traditions that have been handed down through ancestral ties, and this is what my ancestors believed. And there's also wisdom in it because they, for some reason, had experiences themselves and then put protective measures behind it. And I'm going to share a story that happened to me while I was up in the Uinta Basin when I started on a particular project up there. I wasn't used to this type of energies, and I brought something home with me to my room. And it affected me to the point where I had to have assistance. And a couple of people that I had were associates I had worked with had to literally take off my pants because my muscles on my legs were rolling. And we had something on the TV going, which was negative energy. And I was having this experience going, and I was withering in pain. One of the associates got a blanket and put it on me, but they had to massage my legs. And then Spirit told me, turn off that program, turn off that movie, which has had so much energy, negative energy, that it was feeding off whatever was with me. And some people would call that possession. I don't feel like I was possessed, but I would feel like I was being affected by whatever negative energy. And as soon as that television was turned off, I was fine. And now there,
Mm.
I could have had a fear of bringing something with me. But that was an interesting experience. Yes, I was exhausted. I was, okay, what is going on? And a prayer was offered in my behalf. And I said, I need a prayer right now. So those kind of experiences do happen. I had been in a situation where I was at this very spiritual place, and I was visiting a new before the temple got dedicated, the public could go in. And the girl behind me, I felt an impression of a hand on my shoulder, and it was reassuring for me. It was very reassuring, and like it was really brought me to peace. She must have felt the same thing. She goes, "Get me out of this place is haunted." I mean, like we were in reverence in that particular building. And she goes, "Get me out of this place is haunted." And she reacted to the exact same thing that I experienced. I experienced peace and comfort, where she did not know what she was dealing with, and they rushed her out. The security had rushed her out at her request. So we can react to these situations, in that way, or look at it in a very positive way if it's the right energy.
Yeah, for Stan and I, we were, like I said, ordered to do these investigations,
Mhm.
but we didn't have any problem following those orders. One of the things that we did is that if there was somebody that had a haunting that was they were distressed in some they were terrified, this just changed their whole life, and we would go in and find the causes or find the reason for some of these and be able to give people relief. And sometimes just listening to them without, going, well, how much have you had to drink?
Yeah.
Uh, you just lend an ear, and add it to the whole report of what they're feeling, and there are people that have genuinely been helped with this. And when you find somebody that you've helped and they come to you later on and give you a big hug in public and they say, "Oh my God, my life is better. I don't have that problem anymore. Thank you." It means a lot. And so that ultimately is why we stayed with a lot of this to help people. And I know it's a foreign concept in today's police work, that police are actually there to help you. Um, but that's what we did in our case.
As a human being, we can be a conduit for these kind of energies. Michelle had mentioned possession, but in a way, these entities, if you fall follow this idea of other dimensions, layers upon layers upon layers, where we are physically, then these entities would be all around us. And if you look at how many human beings have occupied Earth at one time or another, if
Right.
each one of them had a spirit or life force, that energy can still be around us. And I know it's for some, it's a scary thought that we have these energies there, but for me, I've come to realize that that is true. I mean, I live where I live my home in here in Gallup. I have the Santa Fe Railroad a few hundred yards on one side, and then I have the interstate I-40 several hundred yards on the south side. And because of those both routes, there is death, there is fatalities that occur. So at times I get energies that come through where I live.
Oh, that's cool.
These could be energies where they've been involved in a fatal accident. They may not even know that they're passed on, but they're not where they technically should be. And just like you said in your experience, Laura, where the person had died in a tragic manner, and their spirit wasn't where it needed to go. And I think I get that here from time to time. There will be sounds within my home that aren't the normal sounds within my residence, and it may last for uh, hours or minutes or whatever, and then it'll be gone. It just depends. But I think those things, again, not to be afraid of those kind of things, but it does happen. You know, it does happen.
And I think it was a natural occurrence, wasn't it, for the indigenous all over the world to communicate and to know and to have the feeling and the intuition of whether it's your ancestors or energy or something passing through, like you said, Stan. They were very much more aware. And even children these days have unseen
Right.
friends that the parents don't see, don't they? Their mystery friend, and it's all sort of knocked out of them by the time they
Right.
go to school. But it's all of that is all those things have been lost, and that is partly what we're trying to bring back here, isn't it? Is because there will be people who don't do anything particularly spiritual or have any great belief, but almost everybody can feel an atmosphere in a room.
Well,
Almost everybody
dogs and
has some,
cats
yeah,
pick up on those kind of things. They're very
yes, yes,
sensitive to those kind of energies, and like you said, children and even the elderly people.
yes,
That comes back to them as
yes,
they get in their latter years in life, and so they're more in tune to those kind of things. That middle age
yeah,
period from your late teens through your adulthood. We're so busy going to and from work, paying the bills and taking care of debt and stuff that we really have these blinders on, and we're programmed. We got to get to work by 8 o'clock, and we get off at 5 o'clock. We're coming home. You get the kids home from school, get them to do their homework, get them to brush their teeth and bathe and ready for bed. we're into these routines, and we don't pay attention to what it is really that is going on in our environment. And but we've been programmed that way by our governments because they want us to be good little workers. You know, go to work, make your
Yes.
money, get in debt, buy a home, pay your taxes, and that's what they want. So
Yeah. Don't you dare discover how
UFOs
powerful
and
you
that
are.
stuff. Oh, that's make believe. Don't look at that. Um,
Well,
Yeah.
Laura, one
Yeah.
thing we haven't talked about the
Absolutely.
Navajos, the medicine man and respective people on the reservation contact their ancestors, and we haven't even talked about orbs, which could be a show in itself. And our ancestors appear as orbs, so that's a belief system that the Navajo Nation has, the traditional Navajos, that their ancestors come in forms
Yeah.
of orbs. So there are people out there having experiences with orbs. That's a show that we probably need to comment on and have.
I think so. We probably got a few pictures
Yeah,
between
we
us as
do.
well, because
We
I
do.
certainly have. Yeah, that would be a
well, I
great
think
show.
these
Yeah.
energies and entities can come in a myriad of different forms, like orbs or
Hmm.
apparitions or these dark mass
Shadow
forms and things
people.
of that. Shadow
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
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 And remember, physics tells us energy cannot be destroyed.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
when you pass, you are energy. There's an energy in all of
Mm.
us. And when you pass, that energy goes somewhere. And sometimes it attaches to inanimate objects, which we're told, stay away from grave sites, especially the
Mm.
ancient ones, because when somebody's buried, they're put, potteries and jewelry are put in with them, and those energies can attach to those items. And so,
Mm.
that's traditionally, that's what we're told. Um,
I
so,
love I love flea markets, going there, and I love buying used stuff. But like John said, some of these things can have attachments. It's best to cedar these and clear the energy from it, before you begin using them. Sorry, John.
yes, no, that's
It's a bit like
I know. My mom used to tell
Howard.
me, Michelle, we don't pick up other people's clothes. If they give them to you, you say politely thank you, but my mother can afford to give you brand new clothing. That was her belief system. And so, it's really interesting what we teach. And that's what my mother said, I will make it afford. But that was her belief system from her grandmother on the reservation is you don't pick. And I never understood that for the longest time because I said, well, my friend wants to give me this. And she says, but she wouldn't tell me the reason why behind it until I have learned exactly from the traditions of the Navajo that we don't want anybody else's juju, bad energy.
Cooties.
Kitty. Yeah.
I was particularly told that with shoes. Don't wear
Oh,
somebody else's
interesting.
shoes because all the energy
Well,
goes
little
into the
Navajo girls used
imprint
to
within the shoe.
share their little headbands and things like that, but they would end up giving each other lice, and
Oh,
things like that back in the day. Yeah. So I think that's a little bit utilitarian, where your mom,
yeah.
Michelle, was saying, "No, you don't share those kind of things," and there's a reason for that.
Maybe there's a health issue there. Yeah.
Very
To
much
use
so.
words.
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you do sort of think if you buy clothes from a charity shop, I think somebody said to me once, always go home and wash it in some
Yeah.
salt, because obviously salt being the great neutralizer, because you don't know if somebody
Right.
died in it. It's
True.
like, okay,
in in
yes. And it's the same
in
with,
the early days of the
go on.
Western expansion, there were incidents where traders would come in and give native peoples blankets,
Yep.
but those blankets contained smallpox virus,
Right.
and it would wipe out entire communities or
Hmm.
bands within tribes that received those. So there was germ warfare even going on back then.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Somebody
Just
from the
looking at some of the
Austria, Vienna. Oh,
yeah.
wow, that's wonderful. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate you being with us. Um,
Thank
yeah,
you, Sandy.
Sandy. Sandy Candy. I love it.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So we're coming to the top of the hour. Is there anything that anybody would like to address or
Well,
comment?
going back to the topic, I think that these things happen all around us, and we've been programmed to uh, to justify these things as, oh, that was the wind blowing, that was the house settling, when in fact, if you just like John said earlier, if you have the idea that spirit's there and can be present, and to be open minded, to be respectful of those energies, and those spirits that have passed on, to be respectful of it. I mean, that goes back to the golden rule: do unto others how you would want to be treated, or and I think that applies to spirit too.
Mhm.
Why wouldn't it?
Yeah, for me, this stuff is all
Absolutely.
around us. It's not going to go away. I think it's going to get even stronger as we go along because we've been ignoring it for so long instead of acknowledging that it's there. And we have prejudices built in that
Correct.
say you have to fear it, because it's like every B-rated movie and TV show out there that it's something to be fearful of. And, and yeah, it's unknown. We don't know why. We think that they're attached, through this idea of dimensions, um, and that we've used that explanation. We haven't found anything that disproves that yet. So we're trying to figure out why, it represents something to do with energy, frequency, and vibration, which Nikola Tesla uh, uh, was using. So,
A shout
I
out
think
to Nicholas Tesla.
yeah,
Yes.
not
Yes.
not
Shout
the
him out
not
lately. Uh-huh.
not the car.
And not Elon Musk, right?
Yeah, not the car,
I'd
but
like to do
yeah.
a shout out to the chat to this podcast. The Rangers are going to be in Albuquerque, New Mexico, April 4th, 5th, and 6th to be live at a conference. Um, that's Stan and Jonathan. I am going to be in Burlingame, California, speaking at another conference. So we're both kind of tied up for the April. That's also April 5th and 6th. So if you'd like to come out and meet us at those in your area, if you happen to be in those areas, again, the San Francisco area, Burlingame, California, at the Crown Plaza. We'll do a post on our next show as to where we'll be at, and the range will be in Albuquerque, New Mexico for the first annual Albuquerque conference there. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, also April 4th, 5th, and 6th.
I do
So
want to say thank you
Oh,
for all the support with my book, The Paranormal Ranger. So many people have really supported me with that book, and very positive comments. One other thing I do want to say is the events that happen in Pacific Palisades and in Los Angeles, where people lost their homes. If you're capable of helping in some way, then it would much be appreciated, even with your prayers for those people that have lost their homes,
absolutely.
lost their possessions, and even those that have lost their lives. So I just wanted to add that real quick before we end.
Thanks, Sarah.
beautiful. So you have a Facebook page still. Do you still have membership,
Well,
Michelle?
it's interesting, Laura. We're working on a new platform. Just to let everybody know, we will let you know when that happens and occurs. But right now, you can catch us at Native Paranormal
That's right.
Crossroads at gmail.com.
Fabulous. Yeah, and you've got a Facebook
Yeah, we
page
have the Facebook page.
rolling
You
as
can
well.
reach out to us, but
Yeah,
we
lovely.
are going on an interesting platform. We look for the changes. They're exciting, and we're excited to go forward and address a bigger audience. And Laura's going to be coming with us.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
That's such an
we
honour.
we
Thank
appreciate
you
you
so
coming
much.
along.
Yeah, we're getting out of
That's
grade
fabulous.
school.
We're going
El-
we're going to high school and
Even though a
college.
lot of the times we're naughty.
That's what
Elementary.
makes it so authentic.
So we'll be back.
Yeah, we're very authentic on this. We tell our own stories.
Thank you, everybody that joined us.
Great
Thank you
day.
so much. We'll be back the same time next week,
Uh-huh.
same back channel.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Yep.
everybody.
brilliant.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so